Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today for our German program at MSU and Abroad webinar. My name is Jordan Joseph, and I will be moderating today's discussion. A little bit about me is I'm an MSU student studying accounting and an intern for the College of Arts and Letters Development Office. During today's presentation, Senta Goertler, Associate Professor of German and Second Language Studies and German students will be discussing the newest developments in education abroad. You'll get a sneak peek at Professor Goertler's books and hear from the students about the impact of participating in and working for our education abroad programs. We'll be celebrating 60 years of the academic year in Freiburg program and almost 50 years of the summer in Mayen program, and allow you to relive your memories and share them with the students interested in education abroad. Before we begin the discussion, for those of you who are new to Zoom, I would like to direct you to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You may use the Q&A button to submit any questions you have at any point of the webinar. We'll be sure to keep track of them and address them to our speakers here today. We will also be using the chat and polls function located at the bottom of your screen for your feedback. I would also like to let you know that this is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel within the next few days for those who could not make it today, or if you'd like to watch it back at your leisure. The only faces that will be shown today and on the recorded version are those of the presenters, so you do not have to worry about your camera or microphone. I would now like to give an introduction to Professor Senta Goertler. Senta is the Associate Chair of Undergraduate Studies and the Director of Basic Languages. She's originally from Freiburg and has led the Freiburg program twice and is currently on the 23rd year of her education abroad experience. Senta, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for this nice introduction. And I'm looking at the list of attendees, and I feel like maybe there are some of our attendees who are much better prepared to talk about it. I see 3 of our emeritus professors. So welcome to my former colleagues. I appreciate you being there and supporting us. So I have the pleasure of introducing my co-panelists here, and I'm going to go in alphabetical order by first name. That means the first person that we have is Carly Lazowski, and it's actually, so Carly, if you can turn on your camera, and it's Carly plus her 5-week-old second child. So hello, Ronan, welcome to the session as well. Carly was a BA student here at Michigan State doing her German degree, and a first-generation student, rather quiet. And one day I convinced her to go study abroad in Freiburg. And while she was there with me, I convinced her to do a PhD, which she completed in 5 years, which is an incredible achievement. During those 5 years, going from BA to PhD, she also got married, had a baby, worked full-time for Michigan Virtual High School, where she developed the German curriculum. And she's now an e-learning specialist at Wayne State. So thank you, Carly, for being here with me. While you were in Freiburg, of course, you didn't just study, you also did an internship with the German American Institute. And then while you were a PhD student, you also were a program assistant for the Mayen program, I believe, with Tom Lovick, who is attending today. So Carly, can you tell me, how can you compare leading the program or co-leading the program with a professor to your own experience as a student?
Hi, everyone, and welcome. So I had a couple different experiences, as an undergrad doing, 2 internships, actually. I did a teaching internship as well. And I think just seeing how Senta and then Uli Struve, who's the director on ground in Freiburg, sort of seeing how they interacted in situations and kind of helped us along. Those were things that I really reflected on when it was then my job to help people get acclimated to German culture and to, do exciting things like figure out how to go to the pharmacy and ask for a medication and, getting to the grocery store and finding the things that they needed. So having that experience of having done it myself made me be able to really empathize with them and understand, like, oh yeah, this is really scary to be in another country. And especially, it was my first time abroad and I jumped in for the full year, and we had several students who had never been abroad either. So being able to really put myself in their shoes and say, yeah, I understand, I was here too. I think that made it a really unique experience, being able to reflect back on like, oh yeah, I forgot I was really afraid of that when I first started, or I never would have went to the pharmacy by myself at the beginning. So being able to understand where they were coming from helped a lot.
Thank you, Carly. And of course, Carly used to help me recruit for Freiburg and always mentioned that her year in Freiburg, thanks to many of the scholarships, was actually her cheapest year at MSU. We maybe shouldn't tell that to the rest of the university, but I think that's a great thing. She also was a volunteer for our community and language school and then was able to match that while she was in Germany. So she led kids classes in German while in the US and then English classes while she was in Germany. The next person I'd like to introduce is Dan Nemeth, who is also an alumnus from the Freiburg program, and he has a fancy mic. He is our local gamer as well. One of the other things that is unique about Dan is that he is one of the students who decided to do a MA dual enrollment. So as he was finishing his bachelor's degree with us, he was already taking MA courses with us to complete his master's degree in German, which he is doing right now. He's one of our teaching assistants as well. And while he was in Freiburg, he also completed an internship at a political research institute and continues this research combination of politics and German. So Dan, my question for you is, how did AYF or the internship impact your life? So we can't hear you, Dan, for some reason. I just advertised his fancy mics and he got too fancy with me.
Poured out at some point. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
So firstly, I should say that like Carly, I am also a higher level education recruit vis-a-vis Senta. She was the person, she was firstly our person of contact for our schools in the US while we were in Freiburg, but she also did a little bit of advertising for especially the master's degrees at MSU. And I saw the flyer in my mailbox at the AYF office one day and I was looking at it. And this is, I think, in like the midst of our second round of finals, which are very stressful because it was just writing like 4 12-page papers, which is something I wasn't fully used to at that point. But I was looking at this piece of paper that was advertising the MA and I was like, wait, what if let's say I do this? And then I rushed into Senta's office frantically. And I was like, okay, Senta, let's say I do this. How does this look like for the next couple of years? And we sat down and talked through it. So I guess that's the first thing that my study abroad experience changed my life, is that it guided me towards higher education because it was something I hadn't really considered at that point, especially like coming into college. I was like, okay, I'll get a bachelor's degree and then I'll go work somewhere. But being in the university, especially with the support system that I have, helped guide me towards higher education as something that was really interesting to me. And that was also something that my internship helped guide me towards, because I was surrounded by all these people who had master's degrees and PhDs, and the research they were doing at the Arnold Bergstrasser Institute in Freiburg was really interesting to me. And I was like, wow, how do I get to the point where I am doing what they're doing? So both my internship and my time in Freiburg led me, I guess, exactly where I am now.
Excellent. And I, of course, should give a shout out to my colleague, Johanna Schusterkrieg, who is our Global Studies German faculty member, who is a really good match for Dan, I think, both personally and in research interest. So they work well together. And I'm glad you joined us, Dan. And I think Carly was nodding and smiling because she also found a brochure in her mailbox while she was in Freiburg. So maybe that's a theme.
And I got a second one pushed across a desk at me at one point. So
maybe that's what I do. I don't know. So the third person I'd like to introduce is Matt Zakarski, who has also completed a lot of degrees with us. So his bachelor's degree up to the PhD, and is now an instructor of German. We're very honored to have him back for a semester this semester. He's teaching in our first year program, which is great to have him. It's always great when we have students who graduate and come back and teach for us who really know the materials. Shout out to Tom Lovick for writing a great book. and continue to help me because I am new to teaching with this book. And Matt is really the one who did it all. So Matt went to Mayen, and then after the Mayen program directly completed the year in Freiburg, and then became a graduate student. I can't be blamed for this one because I don't think I was at MSU yet. I'll blame maybe Liz Midman for that. And then he completed a year in Jena. So at some point, the Jena program was actually also a graduate exchange program, which is how my co-author got introduced to MSU. But so Matt, which one's the best?
Oh, that's impossible to say. I think each of them are great in their own ways. So Mayen, I think, was really the perfect warm up for Freiburg. So just having that 6 weeks of intensive, the experience just with other Americans, kind of getting to know Germany was wonderful. And then had the rest of the summer to reflect on that, get excited to go back over, and it really made jumping into the university life in Germany a lot easier. Freiburg, it's always going to be one of my favorite cities in the world. But I was surprised how much I loved Jena by the end too. It was just a totally different feel. It's, East Germany was still kind of rebuilding when I was there. It was early 2000s. I think it looks a lot different now. But yeah, it's really hard to say which is I don't think there is a best program. It's really what fits your needs best. And I think it's a different answer for everybody.
Okay, and I just had to think about this. Did you write your dissertation about punk music?
I did, punk and the Wandervogel movement. So yeah, youth culture in Germany was something that I got really interested in grad school.
Great, thank you. And then Carly, I forgot to mention that earlier. Carly wrote her dissertation about identity and language learning, and she was using a virtual exchange, which is a great opportunity for those who cannot afford to go study abroad for either their personal circumstances or financial reasons. So the last but definitely not least person I'd like to introduce on this panel is Titi Ku. And she is also, she is a PhD student in the German Studies program. She is originally from China, and her research focus is on soccer. And I have invited her here today because she was the program assistant for the Mayen program most recently, and can share more about Mayen. Because here's my confession: I have never been to Mayen. I didn't even know where Mayen was when I started this job. I have now driven past Mayen once and saw the sign on the Autobahn, but I still have not been. So Titi, you're an international student here, but you're also teaching. Can you tell me, how is your experience as an education abroad student yourself helping you teach and work with the students in our basic language program?
Okay. Senta never told me this question before. So, and I also drank too much coffee this morning. I'm a little bit hyped, so I hope I don't talk too fast or share too much. I was born in China and grew up there until I was 22 or 23 years old. Then I moved to Germany for a study abroad program, not related to MSU, but it definitely changed my academic life and my personal life. And then I joined MSU in 2017. I started to teach in 2018, starting with German 101. And I'm not a native speaker of either of the language I work with. And that is certainly a challenge for me at the beginning, because I'm not confident enough in myself to say, hey, I can do this, trust me. But I received a lot of support from my colleagues or my instructors, including all the faculties and staffs in my program. Then they keep telling, I remember I go to a lot of instructors or professors' office hour and say, do you think I can really do this? And then they're like, yes, you can do it. And once I start to teach in a language, in my second language, and I really see the struggle that happened to me 10 years ago on the students. And then I'm so happy to tell them, hey, it doesn't matter if you don't get this. It doesn't matter if you don't get adjective endings, or if you don't, can you express what you want or what you can to me? And I'm really happy to see how they progress and how they develop their language skill, like during this process. And I can always relate to my students. And then they're like, oh, you also didn't do too well in your first semester of learning German. So maybe I should be more confident in myself. I'm like, yeah, see, I didn't do too well in 2010, but here I am standing in front of you, teaching you, and I can do it. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. Go ahead. And I think that's just one thing I want to share.
Thank you, Titi. And I think those of you watching and who did not know Titi yet can clearly see her enthusiasm for teaching and for German, which is such a great asset for our program to have her teach German 101 and 102, and next year, second year for us. And I think another great thing about having Titi on our team is that we have an increasing number of Chinese students that are taking German with us. And so they are also learning a third, fourth, fifth language while not in their native language here. And Titi can be a great asset for them, also helping them by translating back to Chinese. So we really appreciate having her with us for a variety of reasons. And we appreciate all of these 4 panelists and everything that they have done for us. But we also would like to get to know you. And unfortunately, we don't get to see you, we just see your names. But we would like to learn a little bit more about you. So if I could get the wonderful development team tech people to launch our first poll, I would love to learn more about all of you. And had I known that so many of my former colleagues would be here, I would have created a special category for you guys. Oh, it's a close between Freiburg and Mayen. I'm rooting for Freiburg here. No, Mayen has taken the lead. And that probably actually represents reality too. I think one of the questions that one of you had asked beforehand was, oh, how many students participate? And we have about 20 students that participate in the Mayen program. And with Mayen, really our limit is how many homestay families can we get? And then in Freiburg, we have somewhere between 5 and 10 students that participate. So it is therefore not surprising that we have shared our results with you. Most of you were major, so that's exciting, and participated in education abroad, which makes you not a typical student, right? Only 10% of students right now are going abroad. And here is the Freiburg versus Mayen. So we don't have any Jena returnees, except from Matt, of course. Oh, there's somebody who didn't get, sorry that you didn't get to study abroad. Okay, some of you were not able to study abroad. And that's exactly sort of the situation that we see in our students, is that many of them are able to fit it in, especially a summer program, but then some students are not able to fit it in because of family responsibilities or the major that they have. Several of the majors really are very cohort structured and make it very hard for students to go abroad. So thank you for playing along in the poll and giving us a chance to learn a little bit more about you. So now I'd love to play a little game with you and want to know where things are. So that means Penny, I think, was the one who was going to share my pictures from the PowerPoint. So we can go straight to, thank you, straight to the next slide. I thought I'd show you some German. Wo ist das? So you will see a picture from one of our education abroad destinations. If you recognize the destination, type it in the chat and tell us how you know that particular place. Are you ready? There it goes. First one. Let's see. Oh, yes, Mayen. How do you know? I was there. Did you go abroad? I am 1992. Excellent. And I hope many of others of you also recognize this is the Genevieve Burg that you see here. Exactly. Yes, Maria. Very, very good. See, you guys still remember, even if it has been a few years. All right, Penny, give me the next one. Oh, somebody went back. That's exciting. I really like that. I love when alumni can go back and show their family. Yes, Angela, Freiburg. Freiburg tour, not quite, but close. Which one is it? Yes, I will get to that later. The one leading to the beer garden. Well, that is one way to describe that. Yes, this is the Schwabentor is the name of the tour. So in Freiburg, we have two of our city gates remaining, the Schwabentor and the Martinstor. The Martinstor is the one where we call in the AYF program, we jokingly call it the American Embassy because it is McDonald's and then Starbucks on the other side. So it's where you can have Wi-Fi. It's very exciting. So then we'll go to the next slide, Penny. Okay, who recognizes this one? This might be a little bit harder, but if you paid attention to some of our virtual backgrounds, you might get it. And also I know that at least one person in the attendees was there. It is not Freiburg, but you know, when I look at that picture, I often think of Freiburg because it also has the mountains and the red roofs. Yes, it is Jena. So you see the big Uniturm there, and Jena is also in a valley. Well, it's really in a valley, whereas Freiburg is at the foot of the Black Forest. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. All right, who recognizes this one? Yes, that is Mayen again. Does anyone remember what it is? Oh, I didn't know. Is that what it's called, Teufelturm? Those of you who actually know Mayen? I know it's the St. Clemens Kirche, but I don't know if the tower has an actual name. I know it as Vertreterturm. Carly or Matt, do you know?
There's a story like the devil spun it. That's why it's like twisted, right? Other Mayan people. I don't remember the
That makes sense. No, I believe in that.
I think that's what they told us on the tour. Yeah.
We'll believe it. We'll go with it. All right, and then we'll go to, oh, the devil stomped on it because he was angry. What did Maya do that he was so angry? It seems like a nice town that has been welcoming our students for so long. So it seems like a great community. Penny, can you give me the next one? So this is my last one here. I thought I would throw in a contemporary one to see who has been in Germany recently. Let's see if somebody knows. Carly, you don't get to play. It's not Berlin, but I appreciate the compliment. Some of you have been in this town, except that this particular building looked very different. And the only thing that's left over is actually the concrete staircases. They're still the old ones from the original building. Tom Lovick, I need your help. I know you've seen this. It's not Berlin and it's not Stuttgart. This is also a building that was very controversial. So some of you maybe have been here when the Broad Museum was opened up and people thought it was too modern for our old campus. This building got the same reaction in Freiburg. It's the university library, it's the new building. And there was also some architectural challenges. For example, the glass actually reflects the sun in a way that drivers can't see. And after the building was completed, they had to add some curtains that block the sun at a certain time of day so that drivers can still see the intersection. You know, that's architecture for you. So let's talk about where our students can go. Penny, can you give me the next slide? So they can, study abroad is really no longer the right term because they can do so much more. They can do internships, they can do work, they can do research, they can study, they can combine it all. So it's much broader. So we'll start with the next slide, looking at our 2 summer programs and really, Penny, can you give me the next slide? So here you see two destinations, Berlin and Mayen. And Berlin is a little bit cheating because we don't actually lead this program, but rather we work with a third-party provider that offers internships and language classes in Berlin for our students. It's extremely popular. The students today are really looking for those resume building components of their education, and internships are great. And if the internship is even in another country, that's even better. And then we have our good old flagship Mayen program. And MSU really made an early commitment to faculty-led study abroad programs. Here, the students can stay in homestay. And what I think is just so amazing about this program is that there are children of participants staying in homes of children of former host families. I mean, that kind of cross-generational interaction is just amazing. And people go back and visit. And again, I have not been, but that community holds a special place in my heart just for all that they have done for our students and for international collaboration and exchange. And then at the end of the program, the students go on a grand tour where we sneakishly show them our other study abroad destinations in case they want to do those programs as well. And then we end it in Berlin, like one should in the capital. And another question was about costs. And what we really strive for at MSU is to keep the cost for education abroad as comparable to the cost of doing similar amounts of credits at MSU. This is especially true for our in-state students. For our out-of-state students, it could even be cheaper. But of course, there are some expenses that are not covered. For example, the flight, but that's why we appreciate the scholarships that we have available so much, because that is what makes a difference. And could I see the next slide, please? So then we have our longer options. We have the spring semester in Jena. This is for our more independent students because there is nobody from MSU there with them. Usually we have one or two students that are participating and they're taking classes there, they're living in the dorms and doing the things that students do and probably also travel. And then the Freiburg program is our academic year program. It's been around for over 60 years. And there, the students can also do an internship in the second semester. A Big Ten faculty member is there with them. And I see one former resident director is in our attendance in addition to myself. So that is a wonderful opportunity for them to have that connection to back home. And they have some courses that are taught by faculty members that we hire or our own faculty members, and then have access to the Pädagogische Hochschule as well as the Universität Freiburg to take a whole host of different courses. And we do have so Mayen, we have a special scholarship for just Mayen. And for Freiburg, we also have the Jun Chun scholarship and the George F. Peters scholarship that really can make the difference. So I was just talking the other day with a student who just landed his teaching job, thank you, COVID, and then opened up some teaching job for some students. Not that bad, just somebody who did not feel comfortable teaching, which this year, which allowed one of our alumni to be able to teach. And this was an alumnus who didn't really think about study abroad again until he was in my class. And at that point, he wanted to be a social science teacher. And I said, well, you're really good at German and you're a really good teacher. I have watched you help the other students. Have you ever considered also maybe teaching German? And he was sort of like, I don't know. But he ended up going to Freiburg. And the only reason that he was able to go was because he received the Chun Chun scholarship and also some Max Kade money. And that way he was able to go and then not only teach social studies, we didn't talk him out of social studies, we just added on to his interest with German. So those are our study abroad program. Freiburg is a bargain if you're an international student or an out-of-state student, because we only charge you a comparable fee to 30 credits in state. So also in terms of credits, in Mayen, the students can do 6 to 9 credits, in Jena 12 to 15, and then in Freiburg, they usually land somewhere between 25 and 30. We have also had students who went over 30, but that is not something that I would recommend to students. So did I forget anything, other panelists? Did I miss something about these beautiful 4 places? I'm getting nods here. I don't know if everyone can see them, so thank you. Well, then we'll talk about education abroad in general. We know MSU is doing an awesome job. This is one of the reasons why I decided to work here. And I know it's the reason why many of our students decide to come here, because we have such a great variety of, yes, very beautiful locations and such a variety of programs. We have around 300 different study abroad programs. Last time I checked, there were 35 in Germany alone. So, that goes far beyond the ones that we administer in a German program. I should mention that one of the reasons why I'm not giving you exact numbers for education abroad costs right now is because none are available, because all of our programs, of course, pandemic related, are canceled right now, which we don't like to do, but sometimes it's just not really safe for them. So let's talk about education abroad in general. I'll get the next slide. So you'll get a little sneak peek at the book that one of our alumni, Teresa Schenker, and I wrote. Teresa is a native of Vienna, like I've mentioned. She was and her father actually was the mayor of Vienna. So, she really knows Vienna. And what was that, Carly?
Also, she was my first or second TA when I came to MSU and got me interested in study abroad. So it's all coming full circle.
She is to blame for a lot of things. And she also wrote her dissertation about virtual exchanges, just like you. So you do have quite a bit in common there. Let's go to the next slide. And I am honored to have Pat McConaughey here, who is amazing, as many of you know, but he is the most generous with his time in giving feedback to faculty members in our program on their book projects. And even the ones that have left us, he still gives them feedback on our book project. And he gave so much great feedback on this book, and it wouldn't be what it is today if it hadn't been for Pat. So thank you, Pat. And it will come out in March. So this is really, truly a sneak peek. So the title that we finally agreed on is From Study Abroad to Education Abroad, Language Proficiency, Intercultural Competence, and Diversity. And it was really hard to find a title. And every time somebody said, well, what's your message? What is the book really about? We came back to, go abroad, it's good for you. And we figured that was not a very academic title. We couldn't go with that, but that is really the essence of the book. So let me tell you a little bit about what you would learn in the book if you were to read it. First part that we talk about is trends and developments in education abroad. So if you're following, yeah, I can see the question. Thank you. So there's an increase in participation overall in education abroad, which is great. I am a firm believer that the world is going to be a better place once everyone has gone abroad. 10% of undergraduates go abroad now from the US. And so there's still, as my son's coach always says, there's still room to improve, right? And the boom of short-term programs comes at an expense of the long-term programs. So most of the students today go on short-term programs and they don't go on long-term programs. Only about 2 to 3% go on long-term programs now. So people like Matt, Dan, Carly, and Titi are really the exception in that scheme. We're also seeing a diversification of destinations. So MSU has a program on every continent. That's one of our claims to fame. And there's lots of different programs available. But the most popular destinations are still sort of the same: England, New Zealand, Germany, France, Italy. So we're really hoping that we can send students to more places. We also see a diversification of participants. Education abroad had not seen many participants of color. Most of the participants were women. That is holding persistent, but we're seeing more participants of color, especially with the diversification of destinations that are a little bit more attractive or relevant for the lives of our students of color. And we also are seeing more students with disabilities be able to go and study abroad because of the changes in the study abroad locations and modifications that we have made. Unfortunately, the most popular programs often have little immersion in the culture or the language. So that sort of breaks my heart as a language educator, because you don't get the same experience if you are not encouraged to work with the local community. So, such a program might be you go to London, you live in a hotel with your faculty leader from your home institution, and you visit businesses and you learn about the stock market in London and Brexit. And that's a great program, and it's definitely academically valuable experience, but it doesn't give you the language and culture immersion that we hope for. But the range of programs has increased. Like I said, internships, community engagement, service learning, research projects, it's all with it. And so what I know you already know what you gained out of your time abroad if you were able to go. First of all, of course, the language proficiency. If you went to Mayen or Freiburg, you improved your German, you increased your comfort with the language. And the more immersed students are and the longer they stay, the more they improve their language proficiency and also their intercultural competence. We also know that students that participate in education abroad tend to achieve higher academically. This is especially also true for community college students where we don't have enough education abroad opportunities yet. Students who go abroad are more global minded when they come back. So they often have an international network of friends. So I know, for example, Carly's wedding included her roommate, I think, or friend, tandem partner from Freiburg, and tend to have international career trajectories, right? So Carly, sort of educational technology specialist, is still there. And then the students also typically develop a lot of independence and maturity and often really truly find themselves in their career plans while they're abroad. So where do we want to go? So this is the message that we're trying to convey with our book, is that we continue to need to invest in diversifying participation, which means we have to make it more accessible to everyone and make it financially possible, make it logistically possible, all of those things. We also need to improve equity and inclusion so that really our students of color also feel comfortable, as well as those with disabilities. And we need to work on maximizing the experience through immersion. So living in the dorms or a homestay like we do in the programs that we control, giving students reflective tasks. So Dan, for example, had to do a research project with a team where they analyzed the language around them. I think Carly had to do that too while she was in Freiburg. And then that really gives them so much more understanding of what's going on around them rather than just being there and taking it in without reflection or facilitation. One of the issues is that we know that students are more likely to go abroad if they early on in their life had an international type of experience. And that could be they had an international student living with them, or their family had a lot of international friends. So really recruiting early. This is why I really appreciate our community language school at MSU, because we're exposing students to languages early. We also have first year seminars. Those are education abroad programs where students participate in the summer before they start studying at a college or in their first year. And they're often faculty led. So it's a fairly safe environment. It's not that big of a risk yet, but great to whet the appetite and keep it going. So we see a lot of students who are like Matt, who come up with a series of education abroad programs. And we really, with our book, want to show how we can revitalize the junior year abroad. And I think that's really one of the wonderful things about the academic year in Freiburg program, which is, of course, one of MSU's program, is that it's 60 years old and has changed with time. It has been able to adjust by adding internships, by adding these excursions to Strasbourg and for the European politics course. So all of these little elements really help keep the program relevant for the students today. You have to change with times if you want to keep education abroad alive. So that was the quick overview of my book, or Teresa and my book. And somebody went to Freiburg because they grew up in Germany. Yes, so one of the changes, right? This is another change when we think about Germany. If we talk to our alumni who went before 1989, that was a very different education abroad experience. And one of the stories that I really liked was from a group of students that were there in 1989, and they dropped everything and they drove from Freiburg to Berlin because that was history happening right there, and they got to see that. So that's great. Well, I want to learn more about you. So I have another poll for you about your experience with German. So I hope you're willing to participate. it's really hard for me to keep an eye on the chat. I know there's other people who are doing that, but I can't stop myself from doing it. So I'm looking as well. But really would like to learn more about how German has been in your life and may still be in your life. And I didn't give you many choices, and you have to pick one. So I'm sorry for that. If you feel like that was unfair, feel free to use the chat function to share your stories. We really want to hear them. I love seeing that many of you are still using German today. That just makes me happy. So exciting. Oh, 100%. Keep it going. That makes me happy. This is good. So I am so glad this is being recorded. We have a project that our second year students are doing in which they have to learn about the education abroad options and create a decision guide for others deciding about education abroad. And I think this kind of feedback that you're giving us right now is really helpful for them to know about. Yeah, this is another common thing what Sonia just wrote, that a lot of people who participated in education abroad really carry that forward to their children and grandchildren even, and sponsor them to go participate in education abroad, send them to German schools or whatever language it is that the students are studying. And so this is really great to see. It really doesn't just change the person who experienced it, but also their children and grandchildren. So I'm seeing here several people said that they learned about themselves and their community, developed language skills, connected with my German heritage, prepared for my career. Lots of others, which I hope you will share with us. And intercultural competence, changed my life, language development, traveling, all of those answers are there. Yeah, see, and then the kids took German. Exactly. This is what I mean. This is the impact that it has, right? That you keep it going, not just for yourself, but also for your children and your grandchildren. And my child is, of course, bilingual, being raised bilingual, but now taking French. So the bilingualness and having lived in Germany twice for a year really has got him hooked on languages. While he was in Germany the first time, he took French. The second time he took Greek. And now he's studying French here at East Lansing Middle School. So it's actually at the high school. So that's really great. So thank you for playing along in our little poll and sharing some of your stories. I'm going to make this go away. And I love to hear when people go back. That's so great. So Penny, I need the PowerPoint again, because this is my concluding comments that I have to make. And then we have a lot more questions to answer. So we're getting old, but in a good way. We're getting old. I have reading glasses now, but we're getting old as programs. And this is really a testament to MSU's commitment to education abroad. Next slide, please, Penny. This is going to be one of my favorite pictures of all times. So this is a picture of when I was resident director last time, so 2017-18, we had a group of students come to Freiburg to celebrate their 50th anniversary of their time abroad, which was such a special occasion. And they requested that they get an interaction with some of our current students. So you see MSU student Kayla Draheim, who is one of those education abroad students like me who never came back home. So she did 2 years of the academic year in Freiburg and now works at the German American Institute in Freiburg. So she did not return. But I love this picture. These two were just exchanging ideas and mentorship and questions asked. How was this for you? And the alumni were able to see the excitement of those who had just arrived, and those who just arrived were able to learn from those who had been there 50 years earlier, and also compare notes. 50 years earlier, these people came on a boat, right? So just the journey to abroad included so much more. Oh, Dan, you were there, right? You were at this event. So I'm going to have you talk about that in a second. So we have 2 anniversaries sort of coming up. Technically, this summer was going to be the summer of anniversaries. It was going to be 900 years for Freiburg. Freiburg is 900 years old. It was going to be my grandmother's 90th birthday, which is not that important for other people, but for me. And it was going to be the 60th anniversary for the academic year in Freiburg program. But because of COVID, all of those celebrations have been postponed. But we still hope to celebrate 60 plus some year in the near future, whenever it is safe. And then the Mayen program is turning 50 in 2023. So that's really great. Those are great opportunities to exchange, to get back there, to reconnect with your time abroad, and also meet the students that are there now and learn from them. But maybe I'll give it to Dan. Dan, tell me what did you take away from meeting those alumni that had been abroad in Freiburg 50 years earlier?
I had completely forgotten it until you mentioned the boat thing, because that was a recurring element of many of the stories that we heard that night. It was really cool just to be able to, first of all, it was me and my contemporaries of the 2017-2018 year, I believe, and talking with people who had done this program 20, 30, 40 years prior to us. It was just so interesting to be able to compare what we were currently doing to what they had done in the years prior, and to hear especially just how Germany has changed in the last, especially like 30 odd years. People who were there before the wall fell, people who could say, oh, I was in East Germany when this thing happened, or I was in West Germany when we heard about the wall falling. And it was a really cool event, and it made us reflect a lot on how what we were doing was going to stay with us for the rest of our lives. I remember talking after that event with some of my friends, and just how cool it was to hear all of these different stories, and to know that we were like making our own stories at that time while we were in Freiburg, that we would then go on to tell people later in our lives.
And yes, somebody just commented, what a wonderful continuity. And this is why I love this picture, because that was, I think, the most beautiful thing I got to observe in that year abroad, was this interaction between the students from 50 years prior and our current student. And also to see, I forget the percentage, but it was such an enormously high percentage of the students who had participated who showed up for this 50th anniversary. And that is just incredible. They really have this lifelong bond after spending a year abroad. So that was wonderful to see. So that brings me to really my last real slide, Penny, if you can. So this is how can you stay involved? So I just wanted to again mention, we have our students in second year. One of the tasks they have to do is they have to interview somebody who has studied abroad for a project that they do. For another project on language learning and identity, they have to interview somebody who is very proficient in another language. So if you're interested in participating in that, I would love to hear from you and connect you with some of our students. The students really, they really need the mentorship from the alumni, because I'm a faculty member, I'm a teacher. Great if I tell them that they should go. Some of them, as you can see, believe me, but they need so much more mentorship before, during, and after, especially the unpacking too. What do I do now that I'm back? How do I make this experience that just transform me relevant for the future? And of course, we have various scholarship funds that I already mentioned that really make a difference and help us make it possible for students to go that otherwise wouldn't. And I also put the academic year in Freiburg alumni associations on here. So those of you who are in Freiburg, I highly recommend that you join either the German one or the American one, or both of them. That way you're in, you know what's going on. And I also want to really thank the College of Arts and Letters Emergency Fund, and also the academic year in Freiburg alumni associations for providing some funds for the students that got stuck during the pandemic in Germany and got stuck with a lot of expenses. And thanks to the generous support from the alumni, we were able to give some help and relief to those that were stuck in Germany, get them back here and find some alternative ways for them to stay engaged. So thank you for now, and I'll turn it over to Jordan.
Oh, thank you. We've had several questions about the Mayen program, and I believe you answered this about Freiburg, but I could be wrong. Could you tell us what the program is like now compared to, say, the 1980s?
So I think we had a question about that both for the Mayen program and for the Freiburg program. So I'll answer for Freiburg first. For the Freiburg program, some of the changes are we now have an internship. We have these excursions that are related to a course that the students are actually taking rather than just an excursion for the excursion's sake, but it's really with an academic content. We have service learning opportunities for the students now. They don't no longer come on the boat. That would mean a difference to 50 years ago. And they also are allowed to work. I'm not sure if that always was the case. We now have access to the University of Education, the Pädagogische Hochschule courses. That was not the case before. And that's been great for our students because those are often pedagogically a little bit more similar maybe to what they're used to, and they gain a lot out of that. I had to cheat for the question about Mayen and ask some of my colleagues who have more experience with that. And those colleagues said that, again, the homestay, it's been around for generations. There have been opportunities to work before. Those have gone away. And then another change is that the city is just so committed because they have been there for so long, and this program has been part of it. So there are more social interactions. Several of the local organizations really include the students, and they do a visit to the gymnasium. And then the grand tour, I was told, was also a later addition. So those are some of the changes that were made, really going with the times and adjusting to the student needs, but then also really taking advantage of the long history of both of these programs.
Thank you. We just had a question come in. Did any participant get a Juntoon scholarship to go?
So I mentioned the student in the earlier, who is now a high school teacher. So for the last few years, we've been able to award that scholarship, and always helps. Dan, I believe you did get money. I know that, but I don't think it was Juntoon. And Carly was before then. You got different scholarships. So we don't have a current Juntoon recipient, but I know several of them. And really the most touching story for me is the one who was able to go and become a German teacher and give it back. That's the biggest, because then again, it's not just for that student, but it's for that student, and it continues the tradition. So that, I think, is great. And I don't think he would have been able to go without that scholarship.
All right, I think we might be wrapping up the conversation. So if any of the panelists have anything they'd like to add.
Maybe Carly, quickly, you received several scholarships when you went, some of them from us, some of them from outside. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was trying to remember what scholarships I got, because it feels like it's been decades, but it also does not feel like it's already been 7 years since I left. So just a little bit of background. I was a child development major going into my junior year, and then decided halfway through the year that I didn't want to be a preschool teacher. I wanted to study German. And German had been my minor until second semester junior year. And so last minute, changed my major and decided to go to Germany. So I missed some of the deadlines for scholarships. I got a Gilman scholarship, which is through, I know it's like a federal scholarship. I don't remember what department it's through. But I don't know, I got so many scholarships that ended up being a lot cheaper. And that was really the only way that I could have gone abroad, because of, I could work when I was in Freiburg, but I didn't know if I'd be able to find work. I wouldn't be able to work as much as I could here. So having those scholarships made me really be able to focus more on my time in my German classes and hanging out with my German friends, and really just getting a feel for the culture and for the people that I got to meet. I'm trying to think. I really can't remember anymore. It's been so long.
You may have not been eligible.
This little grunty guy in front of me who's mad I'm disturbing his sleep.
So there's restrictions in some of our scholarships where students have to be majors in German, but the students that go to Freiburg typically are. So that's usually not a problem. But again, it's the difference for affording that plane ticket and being able to really take things in and not just worry about putting food on the table. Well, Jordan, you gave me the clue that you were going to wrap things up.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you all for coming. I'd like to begin to wrap up the discussion and say thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here today and sharing your experiences. For those of you who attended and your question was not answered or your comment wasn't acknowledged, we'll follow up with you. And as a reminder, this will be available on our college YouTube channel in the coming days if you'd like to share with those who could not make it, or if you'd like to watch it again. I would also like to note that we will continue to be offering conversations throughout the fall, so please keep an eye out for email communication from us. Again, thank you to everyone for participating, and I hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your week, and go green.
Go white. And thank you to all the panelists, all the audience, and all who have contributed to the scholarships who make education abroad possible for our students. I appreciate it. Thank you.